Hi guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited about today's video because it's been so long since I've made a video about book recommendations, and I've heard that from the few book recommendation videos that I have made on my channel, so many people have actually gone and read those books. In fact, I sometimes meet Conquer students who tell me that one of their favorite books is so and so because I recommended that in one of my videos, and it's just such a heartwarming feeling. And now, while in the year of 2022, I wasn't able to read more than a dozen books and it was extremely hectic. But since I was so picky with my time, I made sure that the books that I was reading were bringing a lot of value into my life. And I have my 5 favorite books and must read recommendations from the year 2022. And I'm sure that you guys are going to love those books. It's going to be helpful to someone who's going to start a business, because some of these books helped me so much while running Conquer. Some of them have just helped me with emotional regulation, and it's such some books that have been an essential part of the growth that I observed in myself in the last year. And so without further ado, I will jump straight into the 5 must-read books that you should read this year. The first book that I read last year that blew my mind away was one called Rework by Jason Fried. I got the recommendation of this book from a college junior of mine who has become a YouTube sensation in the last 1 or 2 years. He's written a book, he's a huge deal on LinkedIn, and he just blew up and he knows what he's doing. It's amazing to see like a 20-year-old who's basically a crorepati at this point, and I have been so inspired by him. And so he shares a lot of book recommendations on his Instagram handle, and so there I found the book called Rework. And now Rework is this really tiny book. It's a short and quick read. You don't have to spend weeks reading this type of business book, and it's something that I've used so many of these principles in my own company Conquer as well. So Rework is basically going to debunk all the myths that you have regarding how to run a business yet, and it might be a little controversial, but it's one of those books that just says it like it is. Rework will tell you that having plans and long ass meetings and big workspaces, none of that is needed if you want to run a successful business, which is kind of true because we don't have that at Conquer. It also speaks about why you are better off ignoring your competitors rather than constantly eyeing what your competitors are doing, why you don't need outside investors at all. And I do believe in building a lean business model, so it has helped me so much. And one of my biggest takeaways from the book Rework, that I always believed in myself, but I think I was looking for someone to validate that belief, was that withholding information and being secretive about your recipes and about your techniques and formulas will get you nowhere. And it's only by spreading that education and adding that value to your consumer's life are you going to grow into a big company and a brand and a business. And that is what we have always focused on at Conquer as well. We always put out so much educational content because I, as a coach and as a business owner, I don't believe that me withholding what I teach in classes is going to make me a better coach or is going to make Conquer grow compared to any other organization. That's just not the approach we use. And Rework is the book that gave me the confidence to go ahead and make value adding as one of the key pillars of what I do at Conquer. The next book that blew my mind away is a very inspiring book written by a female author. You guys know at this point I am a huge fan for such feminist books, if you can call it that genre. And just like I have recommended Lean In the past, and like that I've also recommended Unfinished, this year I had the good fortune to be able to read My Life in Full by Indra Nooyi. If you don't know who Indra Nooyi is, she is the former CEO of PepsiCo, and she's the first woman of color and immigrant to ever become the CEO of a Fortune 50 company. Her life is so incredibly inspiring. In this book, she actually takes you through her journey of education and just what home was like in the 1960s in South India, where she grew up, and how she goes on to study at the Yale School of Management, and how she handled every single corporate struggle that she was facing. And she also speaks highly about the work-life balance that is important for women to really be able to make, and the assistance that we require from the men at home sometimes to be able to climb that ladder of corporate success, which is not as easy for women as it is for men, which is the harsh reality. And that book, even talking about it right now, is giving me goosebumps because I was so in awe of everything that she has done, those moments of courage where she just creates a door when opportunity doesn't knock for her. And she has been quite fortunate in a lot of places, but that good fortune doesn't come out of nowhere. I feel good fortune happens to hardworking people, and Indra Nooyi is a testament of that. So if you're looking for a book for some motivation to further hustle in your professional fields, if you're looking for books that talk about women in senior positions, in leadership positions, and just a woman to look up to, I would highly recommend this book. The next book that I absolutely loved in the last year is Good Morning Monster by Catherine Gildener. It's a narrative of a therapist sharing 5 heroic accounts of emotional recovery. And as someone who has been in therapy for quite some time now, for years, I found this book so interesting because I was actually in a phase where it was a little difficult for me to get an appointment with my therapist because she was so fully booked. And during that phase, in between the therapy sessions, when you actually still want therapy, you have to read this book. It is so, again, inspiring, but also it's a book that gives you hope that therapy can fix the most unimaginable of wounds, and how important healing is for each one of us, and how resolving our past trauma, dealing with the baggages and the guilt and the burdens that we all hold on to deep within us, is important in order to have a fulfilling relationship. And what I loved about the book is that the therapist doesn't try to portray that she is a perfect human being. Not just does she reveal about the conversations that she had with the patients and the details and how it actually progresses over years, but she also shares instances of how she herself is going through a lot of emotional situationships and how she also goes to her therapist. And so it's like a therapist in therapy that you get to witness, and you get to understand their side of things, and how even therapists sometimes need opinions and advice on how to sometimes deal with patients, and how sometimes they might be bringing their own bias into the conversation. It's just a book that is so real and raw, and it just puts out emotions in the barest form that I've probably ever seen in any book. And it again will give you goosebumps. There are bits and pieces of everyone's story that you can relate to, and I was absolutely in love with this book, so much that I actually recommended it to my therapist when I had a session with her, because I was just telling her, if you haven't read this one already, you should. I just think it's just something that you would like in general. All right, so the next book is fictional, and I usually do not like fictional books, but this one had me on the edge of my seat for as long as I had the book in my hand. I could not stop reading it. And the climax is just so amazing. You guys have to read it. The book is called The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And when I started reading the book, I was actually under the impression that this book has something to do with the Bollywood movie Saath Khoon Maaf. And I was so wrong about it. It has actually nothing to do with that movie. Those are completely unrelated things. But this book actually touches upon the most real complicated love story set in the 90s between a really famous Hollywood actress and an actor, and just a series of marriages that she has. And again, it was actually fun to read. It has a mysterious angle to it. There is a story of forbidden love and so much, and also the ambition of a young woman and what she was facing in the film industry back in that era, which has not changed so much even in today's time. You actually get to see the life of a young actress who may have suddenly shot to fame, and how her romantic relationships can affect her life, and so much. It is really a gripping book. I highly recommend this if you love fictional books. And the last book that I have to recommend to each and every person that is watching this video, I've recommended this one to everybody I've met in the last 2 weeks, because I just finished this book a few days ago. The Conversations on Love by Natasha Lunn has to be one of the best books I've read, not in the last year, but maybe in the last 5 years. It was recommended to me by my best friend, who is, by the way, amazing at book recommendations. And this is one of those books where I couldn't stop highlighting the words. It's like a Bible for all relationships that you are about to have in your life, in my opinion. I would put it right there on the top with Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's one of those books that you need to read again and again, and boy, the number of times that I cried. It talks about how we are all chasing love, and then how to sustain love, and then how to have love in your life even after you've probably lost that love. And so it takes you through different stages of life, and there are topics such as death and miscarriages, and how friendships change, and when your friends get married, and how things just change overall, about being unfaithful in relationships, and about getting divorced. And there are just so many emotional topics that the author talks about, and it's basically a series of interviews having been done with people who have had fulfilling relationships and have come up with their own definitions of love. And so you're going to find about 100 definitions of love in the same book, given by different people and what it means to them. And I think the whole time of me reading that book, I actually went through, for instance, my teenage years. To me now, I felt like it was my life put into a book. And sometimes the feelings about love that most of us are very ashamed to actually talk about or share, because we feel like, why am I so desperate or hungry for love? But then you read that book and then you realize that it's not just you, it's maybe everyone who is just looking for love, and the type of love that you should be looking for. It's just so important. I actually highly recommend it to every youngster, because I feel so many of us go through a lot of heartbreak in our formative years. And if we have this understanding about love, I think we would just be so much more mature and wiser in all of those situations, because love is not something that leaves us. And my favorite quote that I actually remember, actually, I have quite a few of them, but one of my favorite ones is, life is a series of losses. And that was during a chapter that made me bawl like a baby. It's not just love with your romantic partners, it's with your friends, it's with your children, it's with your parents, and it's with every single person around you if you can find the beauty in the moment. And so those are my top 5 recommendations of books to read in this year if you haven't read these already. And do let me know which was one of the best books that you read in the last year, because I'm gonna go through the comment section and I am looking for like my to read book list for the coming year still. So I would love to have your inputs as well, and let me know if you've read any of these books and what you think of them. This YouTube channel and community could be like a book club of its own of sorts. And now, before I lose my voice, I will wrap up this video. As always, I wish you guys a very, very happy new year, and I love you so, so much, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye bye.